everyone. So today is Tint Day, as you can tell from the title of the video. So I've got Martin on the way with Alligator window tint, but we're good to go. Got the car pulled to the side in the garage. He said that he needed to have the all four doors to be able to open. So this should be good, should be doable. So he should be here in a few minutes, and then we will get this party started. I live in Florida, so having no tint on a car like this is insane. Besides being a fishbowl, everybody can see in, but just the heat alone is gonna make it so much better. So, but yeah, get this party started.
How you doing? Martin with Alligator Customs. Today, we're doing a brand new 2023 G80 M3. We're gonna be doing some Xpel Prime XR Plus, 70% on the windshield, which has already been installed because I had a technical problem with my computer, so I did this while I was waiting on an update to cut the patterns for the back. On the back, we're gonna be doing XR Plus 20% sides and rear. So that's what we're gonna be doing. If you have more questions that are not answered in this, put them in the comments, and then he will reach out to me and I will then answer said questions. So we'll definitely get you what you're going for. Cliff note what I'm about to do. So my general process is I'm gonna put all the patterns on the outside of the car to form them to fit the curvature of the glass it's going to be installed on. So I'll lay out the back window, prep this for heat shrinking, then I'll put the sides on, shrink those, and then when we go to install, I will install the back window, install the rear quarters, rear passenger, rear driver, front driver. So that's the order we're gonna do things in. I mean, that's kind of the process, what you're about to see. I pull off my green board here. I bring this in as a mobile peel board so I don't peel my film off the car. The reason that I have found that to be important is because generally speaking, a car has not been fresh washed before I get there to do the window tint. And I don't like to rub on someone's car with a microfiber towel, introduce marring or love marks. So I don't like the idea of contamination from the dirt on the paint getting in the window film when I pull it. So I pull it off a mobile peel board. If you went to a window tint shop, you'd see glass walls everywhere for peel boards or a rolling sliding glass door that they've converted. I'm mobile. This is light enough to pick up and take with me. So I'll pull off this, that way I'm not pulling off the car to introduce contamination.
So then putting it on the outside of the car first kind of just gives you the idea of keeping it, so you can basically get the size of it, make sure it's exact.
Well, so I know it's exact because I computer cut all my patterns with Xpel's DAP software. So I know the patterns are exact. The reason that you put it on the outside first, window tint gets installed on the inside. However, window film, much like a sticker, is dead flat out of the box. So think about if you were gonna put a bumper sticker on a football helmet. There'd be so many bubbles and fingers and waves in it from where that flat sticker doesn't match the curvature of the helmet.
That makes sense.
In essence, that's what's going on with the window tint. It's an extreme example, but the curvature, when you're seeing all these little fingers where it's not laying flat, what we do is called heat shrinking. So I'm going to shrink the film, which in essence mildly melts it, and then you iron it down to fit the curvature of the glass it will then be installed on. You do that on the outside because my heat gun kicks out 1200 degrees and I don't want to roast the interior of such a nice new car. So that's why you see window tinters put it on the outside first and then install it on the inside. You're seeing me put these on the inside already because I will use the inside of that glass as a peel board for installing the quarter windows. Over the years, I've tried to make my process a bit more efficient.
I can tell.
And I have found that that
Efficiency is everything.
It really is.
If you don't have a system, then
I learned that from the guy that taught me how to tint years ago. And that guy is a wizard. And not only a wizard in his talent level, but his name's DJ with DJ's Custom Tint. So if you're up by St. Augustine, Florida, that's the guy that taught me. So go to Mr. Miyagi and not Danielson. However, he is efficient as all can be, not just with his cleanliness and quality of install, but with each step and movement he makes is the next movement he needs to make. He doesn't make any secondary movements, steps, anything. So I've witnessed him do a 4-door sedan in 30, 40 minutes, not because he's rushing, but because his process has just become that efficient.
Well, like anything in life, if you have an efficient way, you do the same thing every time, the moment something is not right, you notice it immediately.
That, and I've also found that when you do the same process every time, you never miss a step, because I know that I'm going to do the back window, quarter windows, that window, this window, that window. So when I'm done with this window, I'm done.
Yeah, makes sense. So like you said, this basically softens it up because it comes out flat.
Yeah,
and this helps the curvature of the glass.
Yeah, so once I get to the other side, it'll be easier to see what I'm doing. But as I'm hitting it with the heat, you'll see the film kind of dance a little bit and kind of manipulate on the glass.
Yep.
And then as it's doing that, it's shrinking the film. And then with my hard card, I iron it down and flatten it down to the glass that I'm going to install it on. And then now it's flat, it fits now the curvature of the glass.
Yep, that makes sense, and I can definitely see it happening at this angle.
The trick is learning when to pull the heat off of it so you don't melt it.
I was going to say at some point, yeah, there's got to be a trick to it. So you said majority of cars are not washed when you get there, which
Most
makes
are
sense. Is there a point to where, hey, this car looks a little too dirty, or you just wash the windshield right off the bat?
If
or
it's
the glass?
So, if anybody is a comedy fan, secret time. So if the car is that dirty,
Yeah.
I might actually wipe around
Yeah.
with the soapy water, because if the car is that dirty, then I'm not worried about that. But you found me through Obsessed Garage,
Yep.
and anybody that finds me through OG, they are going to be of the ilk and of the care of their car to where that is not acceptable.
Correct.
In which case, those cars are never that dirty anyway. And when people ask, I just usually tell them to, hey, wash it when I'm done,
Yeah.
not before I get there, because you're going to get some soapy water overspray from what I'm doing anyway. So even if this car had a fresh bath, I'm kind of going to ruin said bath. Yeah, these heat guns kick out a ton of heat and with force. And a lot of these luxury cars use a quality leather, but a thin leather. Mm-hmm. And the thinner materials are going to torch much faster than a thicker material.
Yeah, especially with that much heat.
Oh my God. But no, just like every other window tinter, I've made mistakes in my career at the start, and sometimes the only way to learn is the hard way.
Yep.
But what's interesting is how fast you can ruin something with just a microsecond of extra heat, and thousands later. So
I believe it.
The less that you're anywhere near something delicate with this much heat, the better.
And that 20% looks good too, you were right.
Yeah, so since we're doing 20%, for reference purposes, because everyone wants to ask, how dark or what do you recommend? And generally speaking, I do not recommend a darkness because it's not my car. Mm-hmm. So that's a decision that the client needs to make for themselves. Similar to, I can't tell you what type of car is best for you because I don't know how you're using the car.
Right.
So similar to that, but for reference, if you look at a brand new pickup truck, SUV, minivan, anything that's got the factory dyed privacy glass that people like to affectionately call factory tint, which is not actually tint, it's dyed glass. It's just easier to say factory tint than factory dyed privacy glass.
Right.
But that is roughly about 20% in darkness. So that's why it's a very common percent. It gives you decent privacy, still plenty easy to see out of at night, even if your eyes aren't the best. And it's not so dark that it's going to get you pulled unless you live somewhere that's got a whole bunch of excessively strict cops on the window tint front.
Right. Right.
So 20% is a super common percentage, as well as 15. 30 is the darkest legal in Florida on the front doors. But a lot of people want 20% because it matches the privacy glass that comes on the rear of their new F-150 or their new X5 or whatever they have. And in Florida, you know, we kind of don't get bothered about our window tint too much.
I've never had any problems with it, really.
Well, so depending on what state you're from, a lot of places for window tint, oftentimes, depending on the state, and you know, check your local state laws, but a lot of times, window tint, in many states, they have to pull you for a moving violation, like a speeding or running a stop sign or what have you, and they'll tack the tint on. In Florida, window film is a probable cause to legally pull you over.
Good to know.
So they can pull you over in Florida just because your window tint's too dark, and now they're at your window and they can have that conversation with you. Then they can see what your hands are doing. They can run your record. They can see if they smell or see something they don't like, who or what's in that car. So in Florida, it's often used as a probable cause to pull you over and to get to your window so they can further investigate, look into things, and see what the deal is. So that's oftentimes why people think that they don't care about window tint in Florida, is because it's not used as a tack on, it's used as a PC to pull you.
Interesting. Interesting.
And a lot of cops use it as discretionary to that. So what I generally like to tell people is that I can't speak for every officer's discretion. Your window tint is either legal or it is not legal. And if it is not legal, you're up to that officer's discretion.
Yep.
And I can't speak for every officer.
Yep.
So that's, you know, play at your own risk.
Amen to that.
$116 being the current price in 2023 for a window tint ticket. But in Florida, technically, I've only seen it happen a couple of times, but if they really want to enforce the black and white to the fullest extent of the law, they can technically write you a window tint ticket for each window that's illegal.
Oh, wow.
So what you're seeing me use here, the reason that you're seeing me with the big air tank is it's just more efficient than a hand trigger spray bottle, but it uses about the same amount of water. It just looks super scary because it shoots out with 80 PSI, but I'm not actually using any more water on your car than what it would get if you were to load your groceries in the rain. It just sounds and looks scary. So the other thing that I do, there's another couple, if you're watching window tint videos on YouTube, you'll see people Frankenstein, which is where they pull the entire liner off and expose the whole piece of film, and then they hold it like this, like Frankenstein arms, hence the name, and they drop it in one swoop. As a mobile tinter, I prefer the method called reverse rolling. So what I do is I pull off the liner, spray my soapy slip solution underneath it, put it back, and now I have a little more relaxing work time because there's no contamination getting on this because the liner is back. So if any dust sits on this, it's going to sit not on the tint.
Interesting.
So I like this from a contamination savings standpoint.
That makes sense.
I prefer reverse rolling versus Frankenstein. I think there's just less chance for contamination, and this is how I learned.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, we're not in a controlled environment. You carry a giant piece of tint.
Right.
So a dirt, dust lint
It's
likely
more
to fall
it's
on
more
there.
getting in the car with it than anything else. But I mean, my cousin owns a window tint business as well, and he Frankensteins everything. And then the other thing I like, so I dry shrink, and so what I'm wiping off to prep this back window so that the window film doesn't stick to it when I'm shrinking it is dryer sheet. That's because the fabric softener, when it dries on the glass, it allows the film to slide and dance along the glass without sticking to it. So when you run over it with something hard, it doesn't stick and crease.
Interesting.
The reason I wipe all that off is so that when I'm installing it on the inside, I'm not looking through that haze, so I can better see imperfections or see what I'm doing better in the meantime.
So is it safe to say that your optimal work environment would have air conditioning?
Good question. The reason that I'm hesitating, so is a more comfortable climate temperature better? Yes. However, it would depend on the air filtration in said shop, because the whole reason that I require a garage to do window tint is for the wind and contamination.
Right.
So what can make me nervous about a shop that had air conditioning or a garage that had air conditioning is where is the vent and where is it getting kicked out? Because if the vent is blowing into where I'm working, then that would be no good.
Right.
So if any of you are the type that like to watch those videos where it's like, ooh, so satisfying, the view you've got right now is the view you're going to want to see, because it'll look real bubbly and then it'll smooth out. And I believe I said that exact same thing when I did Ken's G80 on the Daily Driven. I think I said the exact same thing on his channel.
I think you did too.
It is highly possible because I repeat myself quite a bit.
That just means you're consistent.
Touche, salesman.
Yep.
I too have an uncle.
Yeah.
And if anybody can tell me, someone put in the comments or text me the episode and season of that particular Family Guy reference, because I'd like to watch that episode again because I quote it all the time. I want to say it's the one where he's doing the volcano insurance.
Yep. Someone definitely knows that. Someone.
Oh,
has
yeah,
that.
for sure.
Someone has that
There's
information.
no way
in their
that no
head
one
right
on the
now.
interwebs knows what Family Guy episode I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah.
But, just like I tell people, I'm just a guy that puts stickers on windows, but I, but I still like my humor and.
Oh, yeah. Don't we all? Comedy is the great equalizer, though. You know what I mean?
So this is that shot I was talking about.
That is super satisfying.
Yeah. It's the most common thing people want to watch is me squeegee out back windows and windshields. So now that I'm squeegeeing, I'll bring up the reason that when you get your windows tinted, that you'll hear the window tinters tell you not to roll the windows down for a few days, is because window tint is a wet install, so you use soapy water. Well, that soapy water has to evaporate and get out of the window film before you can roll the windows down, so that while it's still wet and soapy, it doesn't catch on the gasket and peel. So that's why they tell you don't roll your windows down. And then it will look a little bubbly, blurry, funky, hazy for a week to a week and a half, while the rest of the excess moisture cures or bakes out of the car. And the reason that that takes some time, if you were to spray down your garage floor, the water would evaporate in a certain amount of time.
Right.
If I were to lay a piece of plexiglass down, it would dry everywhere except in between the plexi and the concrete, because the air can't get to the water. And so that's why your window film takes a little bit of time to cure, because the air can't get in between the glass and the film to evaporate it.
And it's safe to say that temperature or where you live affects that. If you live in Michigan versus Florida.
Of course, the hotter it is, the faster it's going to cure,
right,
because the ambient temperature is hotter. So think about...
So use common sense.
Well, yeah, on the opposite side of things, if you put your milk in the fridge but leave the door open, it's going to stay cold enough to drink and not get sick. But if you shut the door and complete the circuit, it'll stay much colder.
Yeah.
Kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
I can talk pretty technically about what I do. Most people don't want to or care to. So I try not to punish people with info or too much that they don't want or care about.
So there's a dry adhesive on the back of the tint, or
Correct.
it activates when water hits it, or?
No, it doesn't activate when water hits it, though. The soapy water just allows it not to tack prematurely.
Okay.
So this is a piece of windshield film. So you got the protective liner, tint side, and the adhesive. The liner protects the adhesive from getting any contamination before it's ready to install. When you're seeing me squeegee on the outside with my hard card, I've got the liner facing out, so any marring or scratching is on the liner, not on the physical window tint.
Gotcha.
So the soapy water just allows the adhesive not to tack too soon because there's soapy water. So that's what allows me to slide the pattern around and get it exactly in place. Because especially on the luxury cars, but like this quarter window specifically, back in here, there is not a lot of tolerance from where the window tint stops to where the border is. And so if the tint is touching the border, it'll bubble up and lift off the end because it can't lay all the way flat.
Understood.
So if I have to move it over just ever so slightly, it allows me to do that before I squeegee it out.
Helps with the positioning.
Yes, very much so. That's why you see the soapy water, but it doesn't activate the adhesive. It prevents it from tacking too fast.
So we're going with the plus.
Yes.
And
so let me unpack that a smidge.
Sure.
So everyone wants to talk about ceramic because it's a huge buzzword in the industry.
It definitely is.
With cars and paint and glass and wheels, it's a coating that you wipe on and wipe off. So think of it as wax gone pro. If waxing your car for protection was middle school flag football, then a ceramic coating would be the NFL.
Yep.
Again, analogies.
Yeah.
With window film, they actually build the film with ceramic particles in the construction of the film. And that's how it rejects heat. So think about a ceramic flower pot. You could leave that in your driveway all day in the summer when it's 90 degrees and go pick it up with your bare hands. Because ceramic it rejects heat, it doesn't hold heat. So you can pick it up with your bare hands and it doesn't burn them because it's ceramic. So that's how the ceramic films reject heat regardless of how dark it is.
Interesting.
So with window film, at least with Xpel, there's 2 different series of window films that Xpel offers. They have Prime and they have Vision. Prime is their automotive window film. Vision is their architectural film for homes, businesses, and such. Within Prime, there is Prime CS, which is just your standard color stable lifetime warranty window film. There is Prime HP, which is a hybrid metallized film. I don't use that. I just prefer to have a good, better, best instead of confuse people with a 4th option.
Right.
So I use the color stable. My middle series is a ceramic, and then my high end is an IR ceramic, which is infrared radiation ray reduction, which are the heat frequencies from the sun. So if you're from the car audio world, when you do door speakers, you do crossovers so that it prevents those low end frequencies from getting to your mid bass and sends them straight to the subwoofer. The IR reducers block specifically the heat frequencies from the sun on top of it being a ceramic film. So that's how your XR Plus blocks so much heat. So you've got Prime CS, Prime XR, Prime XR Plus. So if you're asking for Xpel Prime, that just means automotive window film. Which automotive window film? So if you were to say regular tint, ceramic, super ceramic, people call it.
Right.
That's what that is. So on this car, we're doing Prime XR Plus, which as of today is the highest heat rejection film on the market.
Until today, I feel like I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate that. But it's so hard to even read online and even read. You go to Xpel's website, you read it, but it's hard to understand what exactly, like what's the real world difference. I get what it's saying, but it's hard to realize. Like, tell me in real terms, like you did earlier. If I'm going sitting in the parking lot for 3 hours at a car show versus just I mean, there's so many differences where how do you feel it in the real world,
Right, and that's what's tough to quantify because, while yes, XR Plus is the best, or I shouldn't say best, I hate the word best because if you can't quantify it, how could you say it's the best?
It's subjective.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so is feeling is subjective. So like when I'm telling you that this film blocks a ton of heat, what that feels like to me and what that feels like to you are going to be different based on how we interpret those feelings and then how we describe those feelings with those words. And so it can be tough to accurately describe what someone's going to feel with doing a higher end window film like this. Because if I tell you it blocks this percentage of heat, you might be thinking about that in a different context than I meant it, but how would you know that otherwise?
Right.
So it's kind of a tough thing to try to explain in those terms.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's where I hate the words best, because how do you quantify that? If you talk to any window tinter, 9 times out of 10, and you ask them what's the best window tint, obviously they're going to tell you what they're currently installing. And if you ask them what's a tint you should stay away from, they're going to tell you the film that they used to install and no longer do.
Right.
But just like anything else, it's about the installer more than it is the product itself. Think about if I came to you and told you that I was looking at getting a luxury sedan, and that's all I told you, I'm just looking for a luxury sedan. You start creeping into performance, well then it matters whether you're getting a C63, whether you're getting an RS3, whether you're getting an M3 with a manual. Like those things matter when you start creeping into high performance, but if all you're looking for is a quality sedan, you're going to be happy with any of them.
Right.
And that's where it starts to, matter when you get down the rabbit hole.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's what's tough to kind of, when people ask like, how much heat does it block or what does it feel like?
It's
You know, those are just super difficult questions to answer, because how am I supposed to describe to you in the words that you would need to hear it in, that I wouldn't know how to say, or what words you need to hear it described as,
right,
to accurately describe to you what you are going to feel with the words that you would then use once you knew.
right.
And the other question that's tough to answer is, especially from people that have not had ceramic tint before, but they're debating between should I get the ceramic or the IR ceramic. And they'll ask and they'll say, you know, like, is there a big difference? Can I tell the difference? And yes, you can if you've had both, but if you've not had both, then you wouldn't have the context to know that this one's blocking more heat. For example, I can tell you that that an M3 is faster than a 328i. But if you've never driven a 328i and you go straight to M3, well, how are you going to know how much faster it is because you haven't experienced it?
Right. There's no context.
Exactly. So that's what it says. It looks and sounds scary, but, you know, very little water.
Right. Which water dripping on that is not going to hurt it.
So it's not. So let me address that. So everyone freaks out because I don't use door panels or dash covers unless it's a specific situation where I need to. This is not that. This is not any more water than gets on this door panel when you load groceries in the rain. But one of the reasons that a lot of the drop cloths don't stick, because a lot of my clientele will have their cars detailed or finished, or there'll be some sort of protectant here that'll make the tape not stick. So it'll fall right off, does nothing. The other thing that you'll see people do is they'll put like a towel that wraps around and connects in the back. I don't like using that because a lot of my, like especially my OG clients, they very much care about their car. They don't want nylon and buckles on the paint side to protect the water from here.
Correct.
Especially when they're interior, like someone's got some time capsule of an E30 M3 or something like that, where, you know, BMW interiors are kind of known to, you know, not last as long. So, you know, something like that, then yeah, sure, I've got drop cloths that I will use for delicate interiors, but, you know, a car with this low of miles on it, that's this new, that's probably still off gassing from being put together, you know, there is no risk when you're using minimal water,
right,
that you're going to damage anything. But if there is a risk, I'll either just not do that car, I'll decline the job completely, or I will put the correct protective measures in place to protect that liability. So I do it based on per job.
But I appreciate your honesty and your transparency in how you do things, because
No
in my personal experience with the cars I've had, you don't always get that or see that or even know what the heck happened when the car was behind the door. So
oh yeah, well and that's the thing. This is where, like, I shouldn't say that I get in trouble, but I get questioned more than some other places because I do a lot of work very publicly or on camera, and I don't change my process for the camera. So, and also, there's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors at a shop where it's like, hey, no customers in the work bay. So they may or may not be doing something you would or would not approve of. You don't know because you can't go back there.
Right.
Whereas I'm in your personal garage.
right,
How rude of me would it be to be like, hey, I know I'm at your house doing your car, but you go back inside. Like, that would be rude.
Yeah.
And so you know, a lot of people see a lot more behind the scenes with me than you would if you dropped your car off at ABC Window Tint.
Correct.
So, you know, it's not that I catch a lot of heat for that, but I take a lot more questions or get questioned a bunch more because I've done a lot of window tinting, very public on video, on a variety of different channels. And so,
and the fact is, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything different or less than ABC company. You're just being transparent about it.
Yeah.
And they could do the same thing. You just don't know it.
Right. And I'm just very, this is my process. Correct. Like, you're watching what I do. I'm not faking anything for the camera. Like, I didn't even shave today.
Yep.
So, you know, you caught me at a good time because I had a last minute cancellation, but we booked this appointment yesterday.
Correct.
You know, so I'm not, you know, I didn't prep for this. I'm just, you know, working a job, and you asked me to film, and I told you I don't mind being on camera.
Yep.
I've got plenty of clients that like to film me. Oh, okay, cool. We're going to turn the camera on. That's fine.
But that just shows your professionalism and your experience to where it doesn't even faze you.
Well, I mean, I'd like to pat myself on the back and say professionalism and experience, but, you know, I mean, let's be honest. I'm putting stickers on windows. Like, let's not make this sound like more than it is.
However, if I were to go to do this, also, I know you're being humble, but if I were to go to do this, it would not turn out the same by any means. So it's not like it's easy.
But, yeah, but, I mean, the learning curve to do, like, I wasn't good at this out of the box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I went to window tint school in Jacksonville.
Yep.
That being said, if you are interested in learning how to do this, reach out. It's Alligator Customs. If that doesn't queue on Google, because I just changed the name of the business, it used to be Alligator Window Tint. It's now Alligator Customs. Reach out. I can put you in school at the tint school, but it's windowtint.school is the website. But I went there for a week, learned how to tint, came home, practiced for a month, opened my doors, you know, a month after I went to window tint school, and then just grinded and practiced and such. And it was probably doing it all day, every day, as much as I could for about a year before I got to a point where I knew I wouldn't get called back to fix something.
Right.
So the learning curve is forever long with window tint. And I'm sure people have done it faster. I'm sure people have done it slower. But about, you know, 10 to 12 months was my personal learning curve. But I mean, I was horrible at it when I first started.
Makes sense.
I mean, who's good at their job in the first 6 months?
Nobody.
100%. I'm no different. Like, so.
But to be good at anything, especially a career.
Yeah, you got to Malcolm Gladwell it. You got to 10,000. You got to do the 10,000 hours. I mean,
that's right.
You know, and you know that's why if you ever see me do F-150s or Silverados, I fly through them, because when I went to window tint school to learn how to do this, at the time I drove an F-150, and my dad had a Silverado. So I've done more tint on Silverados and F-150s. Like,
with your eyes closed, you could do that.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So it's been about a month. I've had this car with the tint for about a month. So I just want to run over a little bit of my review. So you guys, if you're thinking about getting this tint or have thought about it in the past, you know, just kind of give my feedback so you can make your own decision, because there's different kind of window tints out there. And I've had a lot of different window tints on my cars in the past. This is my first time getting the Xpel Prime. XR Plus. So anyways, so I have actually noticed a massive difference in the heat rejection. That's obviously their main selling point. It's 95%, I think 95% IR heat rejection. It's a ceramic tint. I could be wrong. If I am, drop a note in the comments so everyone knows the correct information there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 95% heat rejection, which I've noticed living in Florida. I mean, it's hot today. It's almost 100 degrees out here. I mean, the front's 70% and the visibility, super clear. I have no problems at nighttime or during the day. 20% all the way around. Yeah, I've had no issues. Having the car out in the sun for 2 or 3 hours, maybe at like a car meet or something like that, I definitely can say I've noticed a difference getting back in the car. The amount of heat that's pushed out, and I mean, we've all been there getting in on the leather seats. It's very, very hot. And so I've noticed a big difference living in a very hot state, hot climate, that it does make a pretty big difference with that. So, I mean, right now at this time shooting the video, you know, this costs for a sedan, if you do 20% XR Prime or Prime XR Plus, and then the 70 on the front, you're $900, $1,000 somewhere in there. But I plan on keeping this car for a long time, so that is worth it to me. And I think that it's definitely worth it if you drive a lot, if you're outside, if you're going to car shows, car meets, and it's gonna keep the car nice. You know, I don't want the leather to come up or peel, or the dash, you know, especially with the giant screen in there, and you know, it's a lot of leather. So I would prefer to have the car looking nice for a long time. So that's just my opinion, my review. There's a lot of different tints out there. I've had a lot of tints, and the Xpel Prime XR Plus, it's definitely a difference. I mean, just getting back in the car after sitting there for 30 minutes to an hour, and even 3 or 4 hours, compared to the X5, where the front has nothing on it, it's just glass, and then the sides are just 20% like medium grade tint. It's definitely a difference. I don't get that feeling of, you know, I'm opening an oven and the hot air just hits me. So it definitely drops the temperature down quite a bit more. And it's a difference. So do what you guys want to do. May not be for everyone, but for a car like this that I'm keeping for a long time, it was worth it to me.